England, November 1943. The cold air bit over the muddy runway of an RAF base in East Anglia. Quad-propeller engines roared in the darkness, sending plumes of steam into the dawn. In the center of this organized chaos, a B-17 Flying Fortress rested with a broken nose and a nearly torn-off wing. On the fuselage, the name hand-painted Mary Ann's Revenge. As the British mechanics stared in disbelief at the damage, a group of American officers discussed it in low voices. "It's finished," one of them said. "This plane is dead. Don't even try to fix it." Across the field, a young maintenance sergeant, Jack Reynolds, 27, the son of a locomotive mechanic, simply watched silently. He saw something the others didn't. In the distance, the Germans laughed. In Berlin, a communique from the Luftwaffe High Command boasted, "The enemy bombers are unstoppable. Soon the skies over Europe will be clear." But what they didn't know was that on that day, in a field covered in fog and grease, the beginning of their own downfall was being born. The Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress was born from an American dream, a bomber capable of crossing continents, withstanding enemy fire, and returning home, even if wounded. Its design was almost poetic. 4 Wright R-1820 Cyclone engines of 1,200 horsepower each, a reinforced duralumin fuselage, machine guns at almost every angle, and a range of more than 3,000 kilometers. But perfection, as always, came with tragedy. In early testing, the B-17 was unstable, heavy, and difficult to land. An initial Boeing report coldly noted, "Excellent firepower, but it requires hands that haven't yet been born." Veteran pilots called it the flying brick. Training accidents piled up. Engines caught fire. Landing gear collapsed. Even so, he continued to evolve. The B-17F model, which flew in 1943, was considered the pinnacle. But the war in Europe was making any pinnacle a thing of the past. German Messerschmitt Bf-109s and FW-190s were tearing through entire formations of flying fortresses. And even those that returned were mangled, torn fuselages, shattered windows, man-sized holes. That morning in East Anglia, Mary Ann's Revenge was one of those survivors, a broken miracle, and no one imagined that that apparent failure carried the seed of victory. Days earlier, the crew of the Mary Ann's Revenge had flown over Bremen in the heart of Germany. The target, the Kriegsmarine submarine factories. They were met by heavy flak, the black inferno that rose from the ground like a rain of steel. Fragments pierced the wings, ripped off panels, and the No. 3 engine burst into flames. The commander, Captain Robert Keller, attempted to stabilize the plane. "We're losing power, maintain altitude, don't drop the bombs yet." But the German fighters' bursts were unforgiving. The official mission report described the result brutally. Mary Ann's Revenge, severely damaged, returned with severe structural damage, not recommended for further flight. At the base, the order was direct: scrap. Planes were disposable. War demanded efficiency, not sentimentality. But Jack Reynolds, the mechanic with the tired eyes and iron fists, refused to accept. She came back, alone, with 3 engines and no landing gear. "This plane deserves another chance." The senior officer just smiled. "We don't have time for heroes, soldier. Cut and send the useful parts." That night, when the hangar fell silent, Jack stood alone, illuminated by a flashlight hanging from the injured engine. He didn't have permission, but he had a plan. Jack started with the impossible, rebuilding a main structure without new parts. He used pieces of other destroyed aircraft, aluminum fragments, improvised rivets, tubes taken from a burned-out B-24. The fix didn't follow any manual. It was an ingenious hack, a collage of engineering and desperation. To reinforce the engine mount, Jack used steel train bars, heated and hammered into shape. For the hydraulic system, he reconnected hoses with bicycle clamps and pieces of rubber from Jeep tires. For weeks, he worked in silence, until a curious major appeared and asked, "What the hell are you doing with that piece of junk?" Jack replied without looking, "Making her invincible." On December 3rd, the engine roared for the first time. The sound was irregular but lively. Men emerged from their tents to see the impossible, the doomed bomber coming back to life. The test flight was reluctantly authorized. When the Mary Ann's Revenge took off, shaking and spewing smoke, everyone expected to see her crash within seconds. But she went up and it kept climbing. Jack looked up at the sky and muttered, "Flying broken is still flying." 3 weeks later, the Mary Ann's Revenge was called back into service, without official registration. It didn't exist in the reports. It was a ghost plane. His first new mission, Wilhelmshaven, a vital port for the German Navy. During the attack, the group was ambushed by Focke-Wulf fighters. But something happened. Jack's fortress held. While others were shot down, Mary Ann's Revenge held firm, absorbing damage that would have destroyed any other bomber. The reason? The improvised steel plates, unconventional reinforcements, and adapted hoses created an accidental resilience. The makeshift project had become superior to the original project. When it landed without loss, an officer noticed the holes in the fuselage and asked, "How is this still on the air?" Jack replied with a greasy smile, "Because no one told me to stop." Reports began to circulate. Officially scrapped planes were being repaired in the field and flying better than their factory counterparts. The Luftwaffe realized it too late. In German radio intercepts, phrases of horror emerged. "There is a bomber that does not fall. Gunfire does not affect it." Mary Ann's Revenge had become a living legend, a symbol of resistance and improvisation. The American command finally took notice. General Ira Eaker of the 8th Air Force visited the base and saw the plane with his own eyes. The report he sent to Washington said, "If these field repairs can increase survival, we should learn from them." Within a few weeks, new guidelines emerged. Reinforce structures with local materials. Prioritize adaptability over standardization. Encourage mechanics to innovate under pressure. The doctrine changed. American pragmatism had overcome bureaucratic rigidity. Meanwhile, Mary Ann's Revenge kept flying, mission after mission, with ever-growing holes and ever more impossible stories. The Germans began to recognize it visually. The one with the black nose and the red emblem, that's her, shoot her first. But it was useless. Its metallic, uneven sound was now the thunder of vengeance. And when a bomb dropped by her hit the Kiel submarine yard in February 1944, a Kriegsmarine officer wrote, "I've never seen something so stubborn survive for so long. It's like fighting against your own luck." Improvisation had become strategy, and the strategy, doctrine. April 1944. Mary Ann's Revenge was finally retired, not for failing, but for achieving the impossible. She had completed 36 missions, triple the number expected for a medium bomber in Europe. When he landed for the last time, Jack Reynolds was standing next to the runway. He ran his hand over the bullet-scarred fuselage and simply said, "You shouldn't have flown, but you flew anyway." Months later, Berlin fell, and the same people who laughed at the broken plane now saw the sky filled with hundreds of flying fortresses. A ironia final. Jack's improvised improvements inspired an official structural reinforcement program used on the B-17Gs that would dominate the skies until the end of the war. The Germans in post-war interrogations admitted there was something about American bombers. Even when damaged, they would come back. It was like fighting destiny. They laughed when they saw that crooked plane for the first time, but they stopped laughing when they realized that the sound of laughter mixed with the thunder of the propellers. The thunder spoke and the sky was never theirs again. Mary Ann's Revenge was not a miracle. It was the result of what happens when ordinary men refuse to accept the impossible. It symbolizes the power of adaptation over perfection, of courage over order, of improvisation over obedience. In the end, it was ingenuity, not just steel, that won the war, because sometimes the most powerful weapon is the one that no one had repaired.